Hello, thank you very much for being here and for your willingness to keep on learning about your anxiety in order to manage it, curb it, and stop suffering. So today we're going to talk about what are the steps you have to follow to get to know how does your anxiety cycle works in order to reverse it. Are you ready? So let's start. Let me share with you the information that we're going to see together. The first thing I want you to know is that there's nothing wrong with feeling anxiety. Anxiety is an emotion, we see it later on. And the only problem, the only thing that you have, the challenge that you have is that you are missing. Let me move this here. Yeah, you are missing the tools that you need in order to face your anxiety. There's nothing wrong with you, okay? This is the first thing I want you to get to know. There's nothing wrong with you. You're feeling anxiety and you're suffering and struggling with it because you're missing the tools to manage it. Once you learn how to do it, trust me, it's very easy. I had high functioning anxiety 10 years ago, and until I did not learn how to manage with it, my life did not change. So I really encourage you to get to know how does your anxiety cycle works. This is I'm gonna help you out today, and keep on learning about how to manage everything that comes together. So our objective today, as I said before, how anxiety works, and second, what to do to reverse it, to reset, to manage it. Okay, so let's start. Do you have a pen and a book? You're gonna need it. You're gonna need a piece of paper and a pen to write down everything that we're gonna share today. But the first thing you need to learn, and why you need to learn anxiety, is because you deserve a life free from persistent thoughts and anxious worries. Today we're going to see how all these things works. But before, I want you to understand something that is going to change your anxiety's paradigm. Anxiety is defined by the American Psychological Association as an emotion. Yes, as you can see here, it is an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like increased blood pressure, insomnia, muscle tension, heart beating, short of breath, extreme sweating. All those are physical symptoms. But what I really, really want you to learn is that an anxiety, it's an emotion, okay? It is a worry. It is a fear projected to the future. It is a fear that something bad is going to happen now or later. This is anxiety. If we go to the basics, if we really minimize it, and if we go to the roots, you're going to be able not only to see the reality of anxiety, but to understand what is happening and why it is happening to you. And this is one of our objectives today. So if we mention that anxiety is a fear, it's an emotion, it's a fear projected to the future, what we need to learn is to manage those fears. You have to understand that we live in a very exigent society, extremely exigent, that has normalized stress and force us to hide anxiety. If you feel stressed, it's because you have a lot of work. And if you have anxiety, it's because there's something bad with you, something wrong with you. That's not true. Stress is a sign that you are having something in your life that you don't see yourself capable to manage, so you need help and resources to do it. And anxiety, what it's telling you is that you're living in the future, that your fear to what is going to happen in the future, it's extreme, it's high, and you need to learn to manage it, to confront it, so you don't end up suffering the physical symptoms, emotional symptoms, and mental symptoms that high amounts of anxiety might bring to your life. Okay, so let's keep on talking. There is a quote from Albert Einstein that I really love, that it's insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Why did I point out this? Because aren't you frustrated from facing your anxiety? Aren't you frustrated that no matter how hard you work, your anxiety keeps on being there and probably increasing? Well, if you're facing if you're coping anxiety, trying to cope anxiety from the exactly same state of mind that created you're not going to be able to see any change. This is why when you have a high peak of anxiety and you try to do breathing exercises, to do yoga, to do meditation, it doesn't work, because you have to go to the roots of your anxiety in order for these extremely useful and efficient tools to work. Okay, it's not that they don't work, it's that the approach you're using it is not the right one. You are trying to change your anxiety from the exactly same state of mind that created. This is something that I want you to learn, because unless you change your mental patterns, unless you remove from your life the roots or those seeds that made your anxiety to grow, you're not going to be able to tame it, to manage it, to deal with it, or to control its physical symptoms. Okay, this is what Albert Einstein was saying, and this is how these quotes can help us to understand why the way you are approaching your anxiety might not be working the way you would love it to work. Okay, so the root of the problem is fear. It's a fear management what we need to approach in order to decrease our anxiety. So if we are missing the tools to manage our fear, if we are suffering high amounts of fear in our life and we don't know how to deal with it, we're going to generate coping skills that are going to increase our anxiety. So you have to bear in mind that anxiety is an emotion, that you have to change the approach towards your anxiety in order to control it, that you have to get to know your anxiety in order to manage it, and that you are not your anxiety. Anxiety is not part of you. It's something that came up in a certain point in your life that you have to learn to manage in order to get back to the one you were before it happened, it appeared in your life. First thing, but second thing you have to bear in mind, there's nothing wrong with you because you have anxiety. And the second thing you have to bear in mind, you are not your anxiety. You are not your anxious thoughts, okay? It cannot become part of your personality. You are not your worries, and you don't have a mental problem. There's nothing wrong with you because you're missing the tools to manage the emotion of anxiety. No matter how hard you're struggling, no matter how hard your anxiety is telling you or is affecting your life, okay? Is everything okay so far? Yeah, so let's keep on working. You have to unlearn those coping skills that drove you to your anxiety. Along your life, you have been incorporating certain coping skills that at certain stage of your life help you out to survive, but right now they don't help you anymore. For instance, pleasing everyone's expectations, saying yes to everyone. Maybe in the past that helped, but right now it is a source of anxiety. You're not aware of that. Don't worry, we're going to work it out together. But you have to believe and you have to understand that certain behaviors that you are doing, like living under others' expectations, like pleasing everyone, like not setting up boundaries, like trying to control everything, like overthinking, are the ones generating your anxiety, okay? We're not aware of that until we learn and understand how anxiety works, and this is why you're here today. So keep on watching, keep on writing, keep on understanding, and you will get to know how your anxiety works, which is the objective of this masterclass. I said before, you need to identify those coping skills that are growing your anxiety. Once you identify them, you have to unlearn them. And once you have unlearned them, then you have to relearn new coping skills that are going to help you out live without anxiety. You might be wondering, okay, Marta, but what are some examples of coping skills? Well, setting up boundaries is a new coping skill that you're going to introduce in your life once you get to know how to manage your anxiety. Learning to say no, learning to say no without feeling guilty, without feeling shame, okay? And many other things that we're going to see together. What we really want in the end is to get back this peace of mind that you have lost because of your anxiety, to get back to your true self, to get back to the one you were before your anxiety showed up in your life. Okay, that's the end objective, the final objective. You need to learn to reset your fears and reset your anxiety. And you might be wondering, okay, Marta, but how do I do? Well, first thing, you have to connect and you have to identify what you're feeling. Probably you're feeling drained, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're scared of uncertainty. You feel that your thoughts are getting out of your hands. You are feeling that your what if are just, too much. They're too much to handle because you are wondering what if for every single case scenario. Maybe you tend to overthink everything you do. You're stressed out a lot. You are really overworking yourself, over criticizing, over judging. Probably you are behaving like your worst enemy and you are talking to yourself in a certain way that you will not allow anyone to talk to you. However, you are doing it to yourself. And this is something unconscious. I know you're not doing it in purpose, but anxiety generates this, okay? I'm sure you hate making mistakes. You're looking for perfectionism in every single thing you do, or say, or behave, and that drives you to set up really high expectations, not only for you, but for everyone else. Since those expectations sometimes might be unreal, they lead you to become frustrated. Since you don't reach your expectations, frustration comes into your life. You're afraid of disappointing you, your loved ones, society, and you need to meet everyone's expectations. Do you reflect? Do you? Think about it. If yes, keep on watching. You're not the only one, trust me. So, the worst is that this situation is not only affecting you, but it's as well affecting your loved ones. And this is a heavy weight we all carry, in our back. And this is something we have to get rid of it. Because if you're here today, it's because you have the courage and the willingness to keep on facing your anxiety, to get rid of it, and to learn how to handle it, how to manage it in order to get back your life, right? So don't worry, let's keep on working. Thanks that you're here today. You're going to learn a new approach to reset your anxiety. So this is one small win that you have to really recognize yourself. Because one problem we have with anxiety is that it diminishes or cancels our own ability to recognize our own small wins, our own small victories. And the fact of being here today, the fact of reading, the fact of listening to me, researching and learning, it's a small win against your anxiety, okay? So recognize this to you. And I would recommend you to self-reward yourself somehow after you finish the masterclass. Yeah, self-reward yourself. It's very important to celebrate any small win because our anxiety cancels the capacity to recognize it. Our anxiety diminishes our self-confidence and self-trust with all the self-criticism and self-judgment. And this is something that it's not healthy for us. So let's start rebuilding our confidence, our self-confidence, recognizing small win. And trust me, today, being here today, listening, it's a small win. So after you finish a masterclass, how are you going to self-reward yourself? What are you going to do? What are you going to get that will really mean something special to you and will help you remember the objective that you have, that it's help and manage your anxiety. I would love to hear your self-reward if you write me down. By the way, my name is Marta. I am Spanish. This is why my English is not so perfect, so excuse me if I say something wrong. I'm here because 10 years ago I suffered from high functioning anxiety. Yeah, I've been there. I've been there and I know how it feels and I understand you perfectly. I was overworking myself and I struggled for almost 5 years with it, up to the point that it took me almost 4 years to ask for help because I was denying, I was neglecting to myself that everything was fine, nothing was wrong with me. I was the eternal smiling girl, nothing happened, I was okay, always helping others, always living for others, but I was not prioritizing myself until one day my body just collapsed. With anxiety, if you don't take a rest and if you don't stop and ask for help, your body will do it for you. So this is what happened to me. I collapsed and I couldn't keep on going. And that led me to take action and start asking for help. Since I struggled for so many years, I really, once I got over it and I finally got back my life and I got back to myself. I really wanted to avoid you and people like you to go through the same nightmare I went through. And this is why I educated myself as an anxiety coach, as a life coach specialized in anxiety management and emotional intelligence. I'm an ICF coach. So I'm not only here to help you as an ex-anxious mind, but as well as a certified ICF life coach that not only knows how you're feeling, but really can help you out with the tools that I have learned, not only with me experiencing on them on me, but as well in all my students that are gonna help you out to go through your anxiety. So if you keep on watching, you're gonna see how it works. Okay. Um, and anxiety taught me a lot of things. It helped me understand many things about myself. But it was not up to the point that I understood that anxiety is like an iceberg when I really started to change. It's like an iceberg. There is a part that we see, there is a part we don't see. We only see the tip of it. We only see the physical symptoms. We only see the avoidance. We only see the lack of focus. We only see the suffering that we are going through. But we are unable to see down to the base, we are unable to understand what's behind the water. What's under the water, sorry. What's under the water? What are the triggers of our anxiety? I remember I was sitting at home in comfortably, nothing wrong, no stress. It was a good day. It was just me in my house, quiet, calm. And all of a sudden, an anxiety became, and I didn't know why. I couldn't understand it. At that time, I was just neglecting what was happening. And of course, I was far away from knowing what were the triggers of my anxiety peaks. Those triggers that later on I identified helped me out to avoid them because anxiety works like a cycle. We accumulate a lot of tension from our life. Every single thread that we might perceive, we'll see later on how it works in a mental way. Every single thread that we perceive drives us to a peak of adrenaline and cortisol. Those are the stress hormones. If those stress hormones just kept in our body and we don't release them, we accumulate a lot of tension. Okay. One peak of anxiety after another peak of anxiety after another peak of anxiety just drives us to accumulate a lot of tension. All of a sudden, a trigger comes. A trigger can be anything. Can be a thought, can be a comment, can be something we watch on TV, something we listen, something we read, anything that objectively has nothing wrong, but that for us means a trigger. And that pulls up our nervous system that generates the physical symptoms that we might feel in our anxiety peaks. I remember I was feeling a lot of muscle tension and my heart was beating extremely fast. So that was making me worry even more. So I was trying to force it, I was trying to neglect it, and that got worse because then I could not release this tension. I was kind of stopping or neglecting myself this tension. I was trying to force it to stop it. And that later on I understood that is the worst you can do because in that way you increase your anxiety. So getting to know what is under the water, getting to know what are your triggers, how does your inner dialogue works, how does your inner creative voice tells you What are the emotions that come together with anxiety? I remember I was extremely frustrated because I was not able to manage it. Me, that I was a hyper vigilant and hyper controlling perfectionist girl. I could not control what my body was doing, was what was happening to me, and that got me really frustrated. And not only that, this frustration led into anger. So I had a huge peaks of anger attacks. And I did not understand at that time the relationship. Now I know, because I know what is under my anxiety. In my anxiety's iceberg, I know what is under my water. So I know my triggers. I know how my inner critic voice works. I know how my irrational anxious thoughts work. I am able to identify all the emotions that come together with my anxiety, that came together at that time with my anxiety. And not only the frustration, not only the anger, but after that, I had strong episodes of sadness, crying and sadness. And of course, I was extremely ashamed for my anxiety. So I was trying to hide it all the time. And all this tension, all this need of control, all this perfectionism, of course, all this was extremely related with my lack of resilience. Resilience, the ability to flow with life, to adapt to changes, to live with uncertainty. So all this was under the water. And until I did not discover it, I was not able to cope my anxiety. I just thought that working on the peak of the iceberg of the physical symptoms, breathing, doing yoga, stretching will help me out. It did help, but in a very short term. In the long term, my anxiety was still there. My iceberg was still there because I did not go to the basement. I did not go to the roots of my anxiety. And that's the key. Identify all these five important elements, roots that really, really compose or create and develops your anxiety. The peak of anxiety is nothing. You have to go to the roots. Always you have to go to the roots. So how anxiety works. Now I want to explain you in a mental level, what is the mental mechanism that happens in your brain whenever there is an anxiety peak? Okay, so just imagine you just perceive a potential threat. When I talk to my students and I explain to my students this, they perceive the word threat as something physically dangerous, like going hiking and finding a snake 2 meters away from you. Yeah, that's a threat for sure. But for anxious mind like ours, a threat is as well a criticism, a fear of what others might think, a fear that others might criticize us, a fear of, oh my God, they are going to fire me if I do wrong, if I perform wrong in the meeting, a fear of what my partner is going to think, or he's not going, or she's not going to love me anymore because I have anxiety. All these fears, all these worries, all these are part of our threats. For us, is the same as if we will find a snake 2 meters in front of us. So this is why it's very important to identify all what our brain considers a threat, all the triggers, what we were talking before, because that starts up your anxiety cycle. And this is the last thing we want to avoid. So how does it work? We perceive a potential threat. A threat can be anything for us, anything. Each one of us has different threats. So what does this mean? That our brain turns into surviving mode on. What does this mean? That in order to protect from these threats, our body, our brain releases stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. Why? Because our brain is prepared for facing physical threats, facing a snake. It releases stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol to pump more blood into our muscles, more oxygen into our cells. Our heart is beating faster so we can run away. That's perfect when we meet a physical threat. But what happens when this threat is mental? This threat doesn't happen in reality, when this threat is just a thought, a fear of that others might criticize us, a fear of what others might think about us, a fear of not meeting others' expectations. Our brain works exactly the same as if we would be facing a physical snake, So the stress hormones are released, and that makes our body to receive a stream shot of adrenaline and cortisol. What is happening? That we don't calm down after the threat is over, because it is a mental threat. If we just face a snake 2 meters in front of us, our brain releases this shot of adrenaline and cortisol. We run away from the threat. 2 minutes later, we just turn around. We see the snake is not there anymore. On a regular basis, we will calm down. Our body will release the adrenaline and cortisol, and we keep on living on a regular basis. What's the problem here? Since it is a mental threat, it is a fear of a criticism, of non-meeting expectations, fear of a judgment of others' opinion. Our brain does not calm down after this threat, because a second thought comes and a third thought comes, and we keep on living on this spiral of negative thoughts, of judgments and fears. Okay, so since we don't calm down, our brain keeps on working on a constant state of worry. Those threats that we perceive are constantly, and that means that our brain develops hypersensitive to threat. That means our anxiety grows and we behave in an erratic way. All this is performed by the amygdala. Amygdala is a bunch of neurons that are located in our limbic system, in our what we call emotional brain. So the amygdala is the one responsible for scanning all the environment 24/7 and perceiving the threats. And she's recording the information that we perceive as a threat. For instance, a fear of others' expectation on a non-anxious brain, it's not perceived as a threat, but in an anxious brain, it's perceived as a threat. So that means it's a recurrent fear, it's a persistent worry that activates the release of adrenaline and cortisol, of these stress hormones, that they activate our hypersensitive to threat and make that our brain gets more and more and more sensitive to these threats. This is something that doesn't happen from one day to another, okay? This is something that, as I said before, picture the iceberg. Despite we might feel the anxiety symptoms from one day to another, doesn't mean they happen from one day to another. This hypersensitivity has been growing in your brain without you realizing for a long period of time. That means the base of your iceberg has been building up for a long period of time. It doesn't come from one day to another. The issue comes when the first day that the peak gets out of the water and you can see it, it's when you start feeling your anxiety. But your anxiety has been growing deep inside of you silently for a long period of time. This is why there's no tip that works to really erase or delete or cancel or stop your anxiety. This is why there's no magic pill, no magic trick, no magic formula or recipe. Okay, the only thing that works to really and fully and efficiently manage your anxiety is to learn how it works and change all the things that compose your base of your anxiety iceberg in order to reverse the way you're feeling. It is possible to do it. Trust me, I did it. My students do it all the time and they are very happy. You can read the comments on my web. You can read the comments on my media. It takes time, of course, it's a process, but in less than 2 months, you can get it. So don't lose your hope, don't lose your faith. If you really want to cope your anxiety and learn to manage it, you can do it. You just need to start now, okay? Anything it's clear so far? I know this can be a bit tricky, but it's very important you to understand it. In case you have any doubt, you can always write me, okay? You know where to find me. So now that you know how your brain works, now that you know that it's extremely important to get to know the base of your iceberg, now that you know that your anxiety is an emotion, that there's nothing wrong with you and that you only have to learn about it, tell me, did someone ever simplify anxiety that way? No, hope so. So let's keep on talking. Let's keep on reframing and retraining your amygdala, your anxiety cycle, your anxiety iceberg in order to keep on working on it. Okay. So what do you have to do to reset your anxiety? What do you need to unlearn? Remember, first we have to remove things in order to generate some space for new things to come. We need to stop overworking ourselves and stop listening what your anxiety has to tell you. You need to stop forcing and believing that you are your thoughts or your anxiety. You have to stop neglecting your boundaries to please others. You have to learn to say no. It's very, very, very important. You need to stop letting others to validate your ideas, your decisions, your behaviors constantly. You are your own, and no one but you knows better than you what you need, what you feel, and what will make you happy. The lack of confidence and trust that anxiety generates you is not a reason for you to give others the power of your life. Okay, and this is something you have to learn. Don't worry, you have to rebuild it, and we'll do it together if you allow me to. You have to stop ignoring what you feel, and you have to allow yourself not only to feel, but as well to communicate and share with your loved ones what you're feeling. I know it's tricky if you don't know how, and I know it's really hard if you don't know how to communicate it, but together we can learn to identify your emotions, to manage them, and to learn special formulas to communicate them in an assertive way, in an easy way, so that others will understand what you're going through, and that will generate a peaceful and balanced dialogue about not only your emotions, but what they are feeling as well. Okay? Assertivity and emotional intelligence, it's being grown here. You have to stop comparing yourself, and you have to stop judging and criticizing yourself constantly. This only activates your inner critic voice, your inner critic dialogue. And science has proven that this is one of the most strong contributing factors towards your anxiety. Okay? So this is something you have to learn as well and to stop doing. And you have to stop suffering in silence instead of asking for help. Trust me, I've been there. I know how hard it is. I know that just talking about your anxiety gives you more anxiety, and that's normal. You know why? Because you're fear of what the other might think. If you're scared of what the other might say about you or think about you. But if the other person you're talking to has gone through the same you're going through, if the other person you're talking to has been educated to help you manage it, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is nothing. The best that can happen is that you're going to end up suffering the way you are. And that's the key. So please stop suffering in silence and ask for help. Ask for help and look for someone who understands you and who has been educated to help you manage what you're going through. Okay. What do you need to relearn? We said before, you have to unlearn certain things and then you have to relearn new things. So you have to relearn the roots, what are the base of your iceberg? What are your triggers? How is your inner critic voice? What emotions are you feeling? How are your irrational, anxious thoughts behaving? And how to grow your resilience? You have to learn to manage your irrational, anxious thoughts. You have to learn to identify what are the irrational thoughts and from the rational ones. The rational ones are the ones that we really want to keep on listening, and the rational thoughts are the ones that we really want to raise from our inner dialogue. You have to learn how to stop your inner critic dialogue and shift it into a motivating, encouraging one. You cannot have your worst enemy in your head. if you really want to keep on learning to manage your anxiety, okay? You learn as well, you have to learn as well to manage your fears, those what if, those fears of what the others might think, what the others might say, what the others might judge or criticize, okay? You have to learn to be flexible. You have to learn to flow. You have to learn to be resilient. You have to learn to go with the change, go with the mood, go with life, go live with uncertainty, with face the challenges that life it's showing to us every day, you know? You need to integrate flexibility into your life. And you need to do it all at once. It's like a 360 work. This is very important. There is no only one thing or another thing. You really have to work it all together. You know, it's like a 360 degrees approach. Now that you know that anxiety is manageable, now that you know that there's nothing wrong with you, now that you know what do you have to learn to face your anxiety, don't you feel a bit more release now that you know that it's not impossible? Tell me, what do you think? Do you? I hope so, because this is one of the things that I really was expecting. One of the objectives that I had in my masterclass, I didn't want you to see anxiety as something unreachable, something that you're incapable of, or something that it's out of your hand. It is not. You just have to be motivated to take the first step, ask for help, and start learning about your anxiety. Okay. So, how would have you feel if someone would have told you like a year ago, a month ago, a week ago, all this about your anxiety? How would your life be? Tell me. Much better, right? Yeah, I can imagine. And how will your anxiety be in a year now that you know what you have to master? Yeah, much better. So let's summarize it. Anxiety is an emotion you need to learn to manage, okay? And remember, anxiety is not only the peak of the iceberg, it's everything. You need to know as well how does your anxiety cycle works. You need to know what do you perceive as a threat. You need to know how to identify when your body is full of adrenaline and cortisol so you can release it. And you need to know and you need to retrain your amygdala so it doesn't perceive threats all around, you know, so it doesn't generate anxiety peaks and you don't feel that bad. And you need to apply the 5 key factors that we mentioned. Remember, the triggers, the rational thought, the inner critic voice, the emotional management, and the resilience in order to work on the base of your iceberg and then get a fully efficient approach towards your anxiety. Those are the first steps. But then, to be fully successful, you need as well to identify your limiting beliefs, you know, those mental barriers that are pulling your anxiety. Those thoughts like, I'm a failure, I will never do it, I'm not capable enough, I'm sure they think they are stupid. Those are mental barriers we need to identify and erase and learn from you as soon as possible because they are poisoning on you. You have to build healthy boundaries. Identify if there are toxic people in your environment, and you have to learn to say no without feeling guilty. You need to manage these relationships as well with toxic people or encouraging people. You need to rebuild your self-esteem and self-confidence. You need to discover your inner talents and abilities to cope your anxiety. You need to detach from other expectations. Remember, we talked about it. Living under others' expectations is it's a very common threat. It's a very common trigger towards anxiety. We need to learn to manage all the emotions that come together with anxiety, such as guilt, shame, frustration, sadness, and of course, very important, Manage self-criticism and self-judging, your inner critic voice. And always stop comparing to others. Identify if you're comparing constantly to others. Are you? This is something you have to stop it as well. It's really, really, really damaging you and your anxiety. And learning with assertivity what you feel, how you feel it, where you feel it, and share it with your loved ones. You have to think, I'm telling you all this because your lifetime is not infinite, you know? And anxiety does not deserve a minute from your life. A minute. I know you've been suffering and struggling a lot, and anxiety doesn't deserve you to keep on feeling the way you are. So please don't give up. Please get rid of your anxiety. It's very, very important. And you have two options. You can keep on doing it on your own, as you have been doing it so far, or ask for help to grow faster, ask for help to improve faster, ask for help to, in less than 2 months, learn it, master it, and get back your life. Because we all need help and support and love. Me, the first one. And if your anxiety, as it was in my case, is telling you that you have to do it on your own, that you can cope with your own, that asking for help is for coverts, it's a failure. Let me tell you that my anxiety was extremely distressful. And now I know why, because I did not want to lose the control of my life. And I thought that if I ask for help and I really open to a stranger, I will lose the control of my life. And that's not true. Because this stranger that was in front of me, it was only making me be aware of how my anxiety cycle was working. This stranger in front of me, it was making me aware of how the basement of my anxiety iceberg was composed of. And this stranger in front of me was just teaching me tools. I did not lose the control because all the responsibility was on me. It was me, the one who has to implement the changes, and the other person was just showing me how. That's all. So the worst thing that I did was that I wasted several years of my life, and I don't want you to make the same mistake. I want you to avoid the mistakes that I did. This is why I'm here today. And this is what I did this masterclass, and this is what I'm launching everything that I'm doing in my social media and my web and in my different newsletters or channels. I don't want you to experience what I felt. I don't want you to struggle, and I don't want you to keep on wasting 1 minute of your life. Okay? Trust me, I don't want. Life's too beautiful to keep on giving such a big power to your anxiety. So I have something for you. I want you to imagine how are you going to be when you get to manage your anxiety. I will propose you a small exercise. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Yes, close your eyes. Don't look at me. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Exhale. And now just think about how you're going to be when you finally manage your anxiety. How do you feel? How are you going to be? And what are you waiting for? What do you need to happen for you to take the first step? If you want to be free of your anxious thoughts, free of your self-judgment and self-blaming, free from expecting a lot from you, if you really want to stop pleasing people, and you want to be able to say no, setting healthy boundaries, if you really want to stop seeking for perfectionism and hyper focusing and overworking yourself, and you want to learn to embrace failures, to flow with uncertainty and changes, to live without handling or living under society or others' expectations. And if you really want to get back to the one you were before and reconnect with your true self, to get back your peace of mind, you just need to take one action. Just one. Take this first step that is going to get you out from where you are right now. It's that. It's only that. So now open your eyes and tell me, are you really committed to get free from the negative impact of your anxiety in your life? Yes. So I will present you T.I.C.E.R. T.I.C.E.R is a methodology that I follow to teach my students to discover the triggers, the irrational thoughts, the critic voice, the emotional management, and the resilience, the base of their anxiety iceberg. The factors, the 5 factors that really have a direct and different influence on their anxiety cycle. And why? Because I want them to get the control of their life back. Now is your anxiety the one commanding your life. Depending on the level of anxiety that you're getting, you're doing or avoiding certain things, right? So then, who controls your life? You or your anxiety? So with T.I.C.E.R, you're going to avoid it. T.I.C.E.R is a learning methodology where together we're going to discover your triggers, your irrational thoughts, your critic voice, your emotions, and your resilience. And T.I.C.E.R is going to allow you to enjoy your life again, to enjoy those small little things. T.I.C.E.R is going to help you manage your anxiety, so you're not going to have to suffer the negative consequences anymore. It's going to make you recover those things that you lost because of your anxiety. And it's going to provide you emotional, mental, and physical well-being. So you tell me, what's the value that you give to all of this? What's the value you have to give to your well-being? And not only yours, but your loved ones as well. What's the value that you give to all the things that you stop doing and recover and get them back in your life? What's the value that you give to all the time and all the things that you have missed so far because of your overthinking and your anxiety? What is the value that you give to a life without suffering? Is it priceless? Mine was priceless. What is the value that you give to a life without insomnia or feeling pain in your chest or being short of breath or sweating or having digestive problems? What's the price that you give to have a physical well-being? You're just one click away from starting to learn about your anxiety with T.I.C.E.R. You just have to really want and be really committed to learn about it. And that's all. And when you start, and once you get it, you will get back the control of your life. So it's you choosing. You just need to book a free phone call with me, clicking in the link below and settle a free phone call with me. And together we will talk about your anxiety. We will talk how to approach it. You will tell me for how long have you been suffering? What are the effects in your life? And together we will design the best approach to it. So you're just one click away. And you tell me, are you really committed to deal with your anxiety? You choose. Thank you very much for your trust. And I hope to hear from you soon. But please, wherever you decide, don't give up on your anxiety. Ask for help, okay? If it's not with me, with any other person, but ask for help. It helped me a lot, and now I'm here to help you. Bye bye.